Ever since we made our list of universities that have waived the GRE for spring 22, you guys have been asking for the list of universities that have waived the GMAT for fall 22. So here it is, okay? So if you guys want to get to the list, you can just skip to this timestamp right here. But before that, I want to make sure to answer 4 questions that you guys might be thinking of, when you're looking at the GMAT waiver, all right? So let's get started with question number 1. So now that the GMAT is waived, what will admissions committees look at when it comes to selecting a candidate, right? To answer this question, you guys need to understand the role that the GMAT actually plays in the whole admissions process, right? So the GMAT is split into multiple different sections, right? The quant section, the verbal section, critical reasoning, and so on, right? So each one of these has its own score. So what the admissions committee will do is, they'll look at your quant score in the GMAT and they'll see, is it high or is it good enough, right? So if it's a high quant score, then they'll know that you'll be able to succeed in the mathematical based program that they have, or at least handle the rigor or the mathematical rigor of their program, right? That's why you want to ensure that you have a high quant score. And when it comes to the overall GMAT score, it tells them of your academic capabilities, right? So if you have a high GMAT score, it tells them that you're someone with strong academic capabilities and you're probably going to be able to succeed in the program, right? So now that the GMAT is not there anymore, or if you're choosing not to send in your GMAT score, what will they look at? They'll look at your transcript a little bit closer, right? So they'll look at, all the math-based classes that you took in your undergrad or your postgraduate program, if you've done one, and they'll try to see okay, is this someone who is, mathematically oriented? Will they be able to handle the mathematical rigor of our program? Yes or no, right? So if you guys have good scores in your math-based programs, in your math-based courses, then that's going to be totally fine. Right? And they're also going to look at your overall GPA. So if you're in the top 20, let's say top 20, 25%, then that's sort of considered, a good GPA. If you're in the top 20, 25% of your class, that's considered a good GPA. So if you have a good GPA, then that's awesome. Then they know that you have good academic capabilities. But of course, if the university is super competitive, if we're talking about Harvard, Stanford, and these guys, then you want to make sure that you're ideally in the top 5% of your class. If not, maybe it's a good idea to submit a strong GMAT score. Okay, that brings me to the second question, which is, now that the GMAT is waived, should I still send in my GMAT score, or can I still send in my GMAT score? Okay, so now when it comes to the GMAT waiver, it's a little bit different from the GRE waiver. Most universities, they have not completely just waived the GMAT. What they've done is they've allowed you to sort of request a GMAT waiver, or they've left it optional up to you guys, right? So what that means is if you have a good GMAT score, then go ahead and submit it. It might even boost your chances of getting into that college, right? Especially if you're someone with a low GPA, then it might be a good idea to submit a high GMAT score so that you can increase your chance of getting into college, right? It also depends, what comes to, what constitutes a good GPA sort of depends on the university you're applying to as well, right? So now according to me, generally, if you're in the top 20, 25% of your class, and that's considered a good GPA, and you can still get into some great colleges with that GPA, right? But again, if you're applying to say the top 10 universities around the world, then maybe you want to have a top 5% of your class GPA, and if not, maybe you need a high GMAT score to sort of, compensate for that. Right? So if you guys have a good GMAT score, then go ahead and send it. If you don't have a good GMAT score, then you probably should ensure that you have a strong GPA as well. Now the third question, will the competition increase because of the GMAT waiver? It's likely yes that the competition will increase because of the GMAT waiver. The main reason is because the GMAT used to be an obstacle towards applying to college, right? So now that obstacle is taken away, so obviously the numbers are going to increase. Another case is that if you generally look at the average GMAT score, the median GMAT score of all these top management programs and stuff, you'll find that they might be 690, 700, 710, and some students may feel that okay, my GMAT score is only 650 or 660, so I don't want to try my luck, so I'm not going to apply to these colleges, and they just won't apply, right? But now that the GMAT is sort of taken out, it's sort of left optional to the student. That same student might feel a little bit more confident submitting their application if the rest of their profile is pretty solid, right? So it's possible that the competition will increase because of the GMAT waiver. But as I always say, guys, if you feel that you are ready for your MBA or your business school program, then I would say just go for it, right? No point waiting 1 or 2 years, because we don't know what's going to happen in 1 or 2 years, right? We don't know whether the competition is going to increase even further, right? So you want to avoid all that, and if you feel that you are ready for your degree now, then I recommend that you just prepare really well, have a strong, college essay, have a strong whatever GMAT score if you want to, and just apply to college. And the last question is there a waiver for TOEFL and IELTS? Okay, so most universities have not waived the TOEFL and IELTS. Some universities, they are allowing you to submit an application without a TOEFL and IELTS score if you've done your undergraduate program, entirely in English and you can prove all of that, right? But there's only a few universities. Most universities still require the TOEFL and IELTS. So before we get to the list, I just want to remind you guys to subscribe to the channel because we have a ton of graduate program related information coming out every single week. So make sure you're subscribed. So now without further ado, let's get to the list of universities that are waiving the GMAT for the fall 22 intake. Okay, so first up is MIT Sloan School of Management for their MBA program. Okay, so this is the first type of GMAT waiver you guys will see. You can see that it is, you can submit a request for a test waiver. It's not that the GMAT is made optional, but it's just that, it's possible for you to apply without the GMAT. Okay, so this is the most common type of GMAT waiver. In most cases, they will approve your GMAT waiver request, unless there are some very specific cases, which I'm going to be explaining next. Okay. Next, we have the Carnegie Mellon Tepper School of Management for their MBA program. And for their MBA program, they need the GMAT, but still there is an option for you to apply with the waiver. So now they're actually a little bit more transparent. They said that, okay, waivers will be granted on a case-by-case basis. That's obvious. But they're going to evaluate it based on the mathematical preparedness demonstrated through advanced quant classes and so on. Right. So that means if you're a student that has, these kind of classes, calculus, linear algebra, stats and stuff in your undergraduate program, then most likely your waiver is going to be granted. And of course, if you have a good score in these classes, then again, even more likely that your waiver is going to be granted, right? So this is basically, how they decide whether to offer the student, the waiver or not. So that's the second school. Third school is Boston University's Questrom, I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, School of Management. So for them, for their full-time MBA program, they don't need a GMAT or GRE score for fall 21, okay? So what they actually do is, like I've said earlier, they will check your undergraduate performance in any other similar coursework. This I already discussed in the previous part of this video where I talked about now that the GMAT is waived, what else is important. So you guys can see that, again, they've made it optional, but they've also said that, you're welcome to submit your scores if you want to strengthen your application. So again, if you are someone with, again, they've clearly stated it there, if you are someone with a low GPA, then, if you have a strong GMAT, it can enhance your application, right? And of course, in rare cases, they say that you might still need to submit a GMAT, but that's pretty rare. Unlikely that they'll ask, but yeah. So anyway, this is another case, and this is an example of how they've made the GMAT optional, but again, you can submit it to boost your score and boost your performance, boost your profile. That's going to be true for all colleges, okay? And then we have the Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania. So these guys, they have not waived the GMAT, okay? So not all the universities have waived the GMAT, but as you guys can see, the reasoning that they've used, to not waive the GMAT is that they're saying that they are accepting GMAT taken at home, right? So people who are not able to take the test center, they're expected to take it at home and submit it for their intake. So these are usually the type of GMAT waivers that you guys will see in the list of universities that have waived the GMAT for fall 22. So those are just a few of the universities that are waiving the GMAT for fall 22 intake. If you want the full list, it's going to be available in the description. I think we have more than 50 universities or something in that list, so go and check it out, okay? Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you're subscribed for more graduate program related information, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.